As Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday presiding over the certification of Donald Trump's presidential victory, lawmakers are now getting to work on implementing Trump's agenda. Trump's set to meet with Senate Republicans tomorrow in Washington to discuss reconciliation strategy. House Speaker Mike Johnson told me he wants to have one big bill completed by April. While Trump told Hugh Hewitt yesterday he's keeping his options open.
Well, I favor one bill. I also want to get everything passed. And, you know, there are some people that don't necessarily agree with it. So I'm open to that also. My preference is one big, as I say, one big, beautiful bill. Now, to do that takes longer. Now, with that being said, we'd get some border work done a little bit earlier, et cetera, et cetera. But the border work, you know, we have a lot of money that we're going to be clawing back from the Green New scam. I would prefer one, but I will do whatever needs to be done to get it passed. And, you know, we have a lot of respect for Senator Thune, as you know. He may have a little bit of a different view of it. I heard other senators yesterday, including Lindsey, talking about it. They prefer it the other way. So I'm open to either way as long as we get something passed as quickly as possible.
And House Natural Resources Committee Chairman, meanwhile, Bruce Westerman, said a permitting overhaul is unlikely to be included in a reconciliation bill early on, and that the bill would borrow from Congress's H.R. 1 instead. Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Richard McCormick, member of the House Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and Science Committees. He's also on the Republican Study Committee and the GOP Doctors Caucus. Congressman, it's hard to imagine you're going to be able to get all this stuff in one bill, including the debt ceiling. President Trump wants to raise the debt ceiling or even eliminated it. Already, I've spoken with many GOP senators and congressmen who say they can't vote for that. So do you really want that in this first bill?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of push-pull. The problem is if we want to get a great budget pushed forward, you have to put in something there for almost everybody. When you start putting in extra things, people are going to start to object. And especially when you have such a slimmer majority in the House than you have in the Senate, it gets very difficult to pass a one big, beautiful bill, which I would love to do. And that's actually my goal as well. As a matter of fact, it gives you the most leverage for things you want to get passed. The problem is the more leverage you have on one thing, the more you lose on another thing. And that's why we call it herding snakes up here in the House.
Yeah, but I mean, Lindsey Graham was with me on Sunday, and he said he's worried. There's no way you're going to be able to corral everybody and get everybody's priorities in that one bill. For example, he said that he's not interested in SALT. OK, you've got your New York lawmakers who are insisting that the SALT deduction cap get lifted. And yet lots of others from different states are saying my state has low taxes. I'm not going to subsidize New York and California. So that's another no-go for many people.
That's a great example. Actually, SALT is one of the most controversial things in these bills. And I'm also against SALT. I'm from Georgia. We don't have the high taxes. We don't think that it's fair that those California and New York and Democrat-dominated states that have all kinds of taxes, that they get advantages that we're going to have to pay for and our children are going to have to pay for with the debt in the future. So that's a great example of one of the things that's going to hang us up.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, how do you get anything passed when you've got all of this pushback on some critical things you want in the bill? SALT, no-go. Debt ceiling, no-go. How are you going to get everything passed? How will you execute Trump's agenda?
You know, that's going to be the million-dollar question. As we move forward, there's a lot of debates, and I think we're going to have a lot of pressure on us as a Congress if we don't get something done, if we don't get a budget, a responsible budget, for the first time done in maybe close to 30 years, we will be judged on that, and we will lose the majority. I think you had an earlier segment that was talking about that. I couldn't agree more. It is up to us to do our part to make sure that we actually come through for the reconciliation process that's going to push us into the next future without a burdensome debt that's going to hamper the United States as the world currency standard.
Yeah, someone said to me the uncertainty for business and the markets if Congress waits for tax cuts assures that the GOP loses the majority and Trump gets impeached every day for his last 2 years.
As a matter of fact, the one thing that a lot of media keep on saying is that tax cuts. It's not. It's sustaining the same tax regulation that we had previously. And that's one thing that I want to frame it, because the Democrats always like say, oh, we're doing new tax cuts, we can't pay for this. It's the same one that Biden benefited that Trump passed earlier, and we should benefit from it too.
Well, to be clear, President Trump also added some things to that, right? I mean, he added no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. So that does complicate things. You got to write that language in there. And Democrats are already slamming the Trump agenda overall. A DNC spokesperson said that the Democrats will, quote, fight back, claiming that the CR will feature the worst and most unpopular parts of Project 2025. Trump is suggesting, though, that some Democrats may want to support the agenda. Here's what he said yesterday. Watch.
They're the only party I've ever heard that say we're going to raise your taxes. With that being said, I can't imagine that they would not approve. This would be the largest tax increase in the history of the world, okay? I mean, let alone in this country. And I can't imagine the Democrats would do that to this country and do that to the people just because they happen to dislike Republicans or me.
What do you think, Congressman?
Well, some of the things that they're criticizing are the things that Kamala ran on. You saw her at the end of her campaign, realizing she was in trouble, start to shift towards Trump policies. And that's what's kind of hilarious about the Democrats' claims. As far as the tip taxation, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in our debt process. We know how reporting for tips works already, and we know how much we're going to lose or gain on tariffs. Tariffs in general are fairly controversial. President Trump has used it great ways to leverage what we need to get overseas. Hopefully we can do that without increasing the prices of goods here. But there's a lot of controversy and a lot of things we're going to do. But ultimately, we are responsible for passing a responsible resolution on the future budget that we can actually control our spending. Spending is the biggest problem, and Democrats have never been able to control their unsatiable appetite for spending, and I think that's where we're going to get really hung up.
All right, we will leave it there. I mean, is it fair to say that the debt ceiling issue is unlikely to be in the first package? I mean, you're going to get so much. I've already spoken with 3 GOPers who said there's no way I'm voting for raising the debt ceiling.
Well, there you go. It doesn't take more than 3. So if 3 people say there's no way, they've already painted themselves in a corner, so you're probably correct.
Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir. Richard McCormick joining us this morning on the agenda. A quick break, and then the fight over the U.S. Steel deal is just beginning. We're getting an